Hi, Elise.
Hello. Hi, Ursula. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Hello, friends, and welcome to Wax Hermetic. Thank you for joining us today. We are very excited to have the second episode about Pluto. This is We Heart Pluto, part two. And we think it's very appropriate to put some spec on Pluto, the Lord of the Underworld's name, especially since we are just hours away from a new moon in Scorpio, which is, of course, ruled by Pluto, modern rulership, and even make some contact with some other underworld figures, such as this lunation cycle will be conjunct Lilith also for the last time in quite a while. So there's a lot of underworld things that are begging to be revealed as indicated by the stars. So let's open up the circle with this ritual bell, and we
Thank
are
you.
here. Thank you.
So, do you want to kind of just present like a organization, because we have a lot to cover today. I'm actually like, are we
We
going to
have
get
a
through everything in an hour?
We have a lot to cover today. I think the thing that we really want to get down to brass tacks about after last week, where we just kind of indulged ourselves in the symbolism and the glyphs and the artwork and even the tarot cards that correspond with Hades, Pluto, the underworld, Pluto as ruler of Scorpio. Being the opposite sign of Taurus, which is very much earthen, fertility, life, the inherent value of the physical world, its abundance, its beauty, its fertility, all that kind of stuff. Um, and how, well, we don't really have that without Scorpio being its polar opposite. Um, Something that I definitely want to just like focus on is the fact that societally, which is why I think I'm like most interested in unpacking the stuff that we're going to get into today. We're so like, we have such a sterilized version of, or like understanding of the life, death, rebirth concept. We're basically allergic to all things death, whereas that's like a pretty modern and certainly Western phenomenon. And what the danger is with that is that if you kind of subscribe to this sterilized, just kind of like milk toast version of reality, the intensity that is inherently there and the ticking time bomb that is the transformative, inevitable, cathartic, and if you're not willing or aware of the inevitable need to surrender to the death and transformation of things, um, what is essentially like an impulse to act or to honor one's intensity and the inevitability of the ending and regeneration of things, we end up being compelled by a fear of it. And so something that actually exists in us, some may even call it our shadow selves, all of a sudden becomes this external entity. So instead of being impelled, which is an impulse that comes from within, we feel compelled by the fear of something outside of us. And
Mm,
so that's where I would like to, that's my I Heart Pluto. Like, let's get down to brass tacks so we can reclaim our power, including that power to both destroy, be destroyed, give birth to new things, and regenerate as something more powerful, more integrated, to really like the lords of our own destiny.
yeah. Yeah. So, I think the best way to proceed would be if you would share with us the origin story with, the myth of Pluto and Persephone and everything that we prepared to share about that. Because I think
Okay.
starting there is really important.
Okay.
And then we can talk about the origin chart, the Pluto discovery chart.
Okay, yeah.
And then we can get into the things that we've uncovered that are very suspicious about when Pluto was demoted or quote unquote Plutoed. It's actually become a verb at this point.
It has.
The
I thought you
process of
just made that
being
up.
demoted. No.
I mean, that is kind of funny because like I always say that like, people things or people get murked by Pluto, but to be Plutoed by Pluto or having Pluto Plutoed is pretty hysterical. So I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, so Pluto is the lord of the underworld. His Greek name is Hades. We know Hades to be both a god as well as the underworld, the name for the underworld in Greek mythology. And it is, yes, the land of the not living. So that is the land of death, everything that is not on the earth life plane, and certainly not of the heavenly plane, or in Greek mythology, the Mount Olympus. Um, Pluto is also the his brother. Hades is the brother of both Zeus as well as um, Poseidon, so the Lord of the Sea. And so in that would be Neptune, and it would be, is Jupiter really considered Zeus? I don't know. Long story short, he's kind of like the third in line. Like, so if you've heard of the what was Prince Harry's book called? The Spare, okay? Hades is like the third in line. He's almost like, he's kind of in some way the underdog. The reason why I talk about this
Mhm.
is because there is something about dominion, and having dominion over one's own, like, demise and rebirth and stuff like that, that when people, especially in utilizing astrology and all things kind of underworldly, they start to, and certainly when we get into the myth of Persephone, that having dominion over one's own life, having dominion over one's own, their world being transformed, them transforming, is like a huge something. So yeah, so Pluto rules over the underworld, and he, it's kind of like a grim job. Yeah. So Hades, yeah. The Hades, the word means the unseen one, a suitable name since Hades is the ruler of the invisible world. However, the ancient Greeks rarely used this name, just like Christians rarely used the word hell during the Middle Ages. So, since minerals and precious metals are found underground, they often refer to Hades euphemistically as Pluton, namely the wealth giver. Unsurprisingly, Hades, Roman equivalent, is called Pluto as well. Hades' portrayal and symbolism. As the ruler of the dead, Hades was a grim and ghastly figure, inspiring awe and terror in everybody. Consequently, he was rarely depicted in art. When he was most commonly portrayed with a beard and a solemn, mournful look. He frequently wears a helmet named the Helm of Darkness, or the Cap of Invisibility. So, in both myth as well as in astrology, where we borrow a lot of this symbolism, Pluto not only rules death, destruction, the undead, rebirth, but also unseen forces that are actually like the ultimate power behind things, the ultimate driving force behind things, as well as I guess a word for it would also be like elemental power. I also was reading that Pluto also rules atomic science,
Mm.
as well as these riches, that anything that is underground, caves, minerals, all these kind of things. Literally, the earth opening up by way of so like earthquakes, and like the ever evolving power dynamics that lie both with like underneath the surface and in the unseen. It is the unseen life. It is the unseen force that counters the life force. And so In terms of him ruling over the underground, some people think it's like a really raw deal. Sometimes Hades also agrees because he seems to have no dominion over things, which is interesting when we get to this story of Persephone and Demeter, and Hades abducting Persephone. So Demeter is the goddess of the grain. She's the goddess of a lot of things. Kind of like losing my whatever about that, but she is like the life force, fertility. She makes all like the plants grow, and I think she has to do with husbandry and stuff like that, like all the animals, all the earth, all the stuff that humans need to survive. And so the story of Persephone and Demeter is Persephone is the only daughter of Demeter, and so she is a prized, daughter and possession of her mother. And one day, she's also super beautiful, and she goes out picking flowers as the young maiden, and she catches the eye of Hades, who then decides to abduct her. He actually causes the earth to open up and grabs her on his four-horsed chariot, golden chariot, and brings her down to the underworld and claims her as his own. So the earth closes back up, and Demeter is actually notified by Hecate and another goddess or nymph or some nature that Demeter has actually been taken to the underworld, and Hades has claimed her as her own. And Demeter, the goddess of all things life force energy, gets really upset and locks herself away, and a cold darkness goes over the earth, and all the fruit and vegetables and animals start dying, and all the life creatures such as humans that rely on those things start to starve, and then Zeus has to get involved. So Demeter begs for Zeus to give to get Hades to return Persephone back to her. And what has transpired in the underworld is that Persephone has allegedly eaten the fruit of the underworld by way of a pomegranate. And because she has consumed food from the underworld, that she is no longer of the earth. But we can't have, so Persephone, do you want to read that?
Sure. So Hades, the ruler of the underworld, decided that he wanted to marry Persephone, his sister Demeter's only daughter. One day, as she was gathering flowers in the Nicean meadow with her maidens, she wandered apart. So this is the part that you were already talking about. Wandered apart from the group, ensnared by the sudden blooming of a glorious, fragrant flower. Some say it was a narcissus. As she reached to pluck it, the ground below her feet opened up, and Hades, in his four-horse golden chariot, appeared before her in all his power and majesty. He snatched her and took her with him to the underworld to be his wife and queen.
So she goes unwillingly.
So she was kidnapped, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what you were talking about. This talks about the Zeus part. And Hermes was actually involved also. So we have Mercurial involvement in this rescue story as well.
Of course.
It says, seeing no way out of it, Zeus, who some say must have approved Hades' abduction in the first place, sent Hermes to the underworld to fetch Persephone back to her mother. The divine messenger did do precisely that, and Demeter and Persephone were once again reunited on Olympus. So then you can talk about the
So how many pomegranate seeds does Persephone eat? It says, however, either on her own accord or more probably after being tricked by Hades, Persephone ate 6 pomegranate seeds before leaving the underworld. This act bound her to spend 6 months of each year in the underworld as the queen of the dead, while she could spend the other 6 months on earth with her mother Demeter, then allowing the earth to flower again. Oh, here we go. So Zeus proposed a compromise that Persephone would spend half the year with her mother and the other half with her new husband. Everybody agreed that that's how the seasons were born and how the growth of the crops was explained. Just like a seed, Persephone spends 6 months of the year below the earth. This is the period of Demeter's grief, which coincides with the dark winter months. However, when the time comes for Persephone to return to her mother, Demeter brings back the light and the warmth, and the earth rejoices in abundance, symbolizing the arrival of spring and summer. So, Pluto really throws a wrench in the works, or, in terms of how, even the guileless maiden, Persephone, goes about life. Just everything is beautiful, and she has her whole life ahead of her. She has her youth. She is an immortal goddess, but being of two, being the progeny of Zeus and Demeter. And yet, even she experiences a death that is like, it's a death without having a mortal death. It completely transforms her existence. It completely transforms, her view of the world. And it even transforms, someone who never maybe even thought about her own power and other people, and then her own power kind of becoming the point of like all the entire Mount Olympus and the underworld's, attention is like the beauty, the whatever of her that impelled Hades to take her for his own. She didn't even know she had that power. So, and then becoming the queen of the underworld, she actually becomes a queen of something, which some people say is also what finally makes Hades a king of something. Because that's why I brought up the fact that he's kind of like the third in line. He's not even the spare. He's like the tertiary god. And so, but now her being attached to him and him having a bride actually makes him a king of something, whereas before he was just the third in line who inherited the underworld, and they were like, yeah, you oversee that. No one wanted that job anyway, but now she has her own domain, and the underworld is a place that everyone will go to. What is
that?
So
we have a flurry of comments.
Okay.
So Joey says, Hades is my buddy. Sun is in tight conjunction with Pluto. Me too. And I actually want to, if I can share the, at some point, the red-tailed hawk visit that I got last week.
Yes,
that'll kind of bring this into it. So then we have Drunken Donuts is also here commenting and asking questions. And Pluto got a bad rap for sure. Did they get on an ark? I'm not sure about that. Do you know how they made it back to the land of the living?
I don't. I imagine it had something to do with Hermes and his winged sandals. That's
just sort of like, boop, we're back.
I don't know if, or maybe he sent, Hades sent his queen back on his chariot. Who knows?
Perhaps. I think a chariot was more like a part of the story rather than an arc. I don't think that there was water involved in that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of water in Hades. There's not a lot of water in Hades.
And then this is hilarious. Yeah, exactly what we were talking about. Like Persephone actually enjoyed. Or is it a carriage that turned into a pumpkin? I don't know.
Again, there's not a lot of like I mean, I don't know how we have pomegranates in the underworld, but I don't know if we'd have a pumpkin available to turn into a coach of any nature.
Maybe a pomegranate carriage.
Yeah, maybe it's a pomegranate carriage. Who knows?
Like Cinderella.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love the idea that he is like, that Pluto and the underworld rule wealth. But the whole thing about the land of the dead is that the one thing that they can't have is anything from the land of the living, right? That's like, so that's where the opposing, the axis of Taurus and Scorpio really exist, is that Taurus is about the inherent value of having a physical body, a physical existence, a physical earth and all of its bounty to appreciate and enjoy, and to have dominion over. while we are having a life, a living experience, an embodied experience. Whereas Pluto, Scorpio, on the other side of that, it might be about wealth, it might be about kind of like, I don't know, like things that are valuable, maybe through dimensions almost, I want to feel like, things that are
Mhm.
considered valuable that are outside of the realm of the living. So, like, I think that's crazy. Taurus also savings, Scorpio investment capital. Interesting.
Yeah.
Also,
So ha
I also think of Taurus as things that are like tangible goods versus Scorpio. I think of like fiat currency, like it can just it's ethereal. I mean, like it's not real. You know what I'm saying? It literally
Mhm.
has phi, faith based in the like, phi being um Latin for faith. It is something that you have to have faith in for it to be meaningful or valuable, whereas Taurus is the inherent value. I have a body, I have food, I have grain, I have it's funny because I think of gold, like, stacks of like tangible gold as being a Taurus thing, but maybe I'm wrong on that since Scorpio actually and Pluto rule over minerals and things that are found in the earth that are valuable. They are wealth building indicators that you have to harvest from the ground. And they're always there. That's the other thing. Like they're always there to
Right.
be taken.
They're secretly hidden until somebody uncovers or discovers them.
Right. And then there's like and they're also stuff that is produced through the heat and the pressure and the stuff that all is
So there's a
bubbling
transformation
underneath.
process.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has this transformation process. It's like stuff that is only that comes out of the fire, the stuff that it comes out of this crucible of all the things that are bubbling beneath the veneer of the living like earth, all that you can see, versus that which you can't see.
Yeah. And I think crypto does fall under this domain as far as the other side of things at this point, because
Oh yeah.
it isn't tangible. It's
Correct.
this
Oh yeah.
whole brand new thing
Oh yeah.
that is just with Pluto and Aquarius now. I think it's going to have its heyday for sure, and we'll see how that evolves over the next 20 years. It's very
Right.
interesting.
It's very interesting, especially with, Pluto being in Aquarius, which is, the idea behind crypto is that it is more of this community, this humanity decentralizing this power structure of, centralized banking.
Yeah.
But it's kind of crazy to think that we have things like digital currency and CBDCs like on the horizon that would then counteract, right? These, kind of like an initial push towards things like cryptocurrency and stuff like that. So always mind Pluto. You have to mind Pluto the same way that you have to mind Saturn. And I also feel like you always have to mind the moon too. But I feel like
Yes.
those are three things that are just like, if you don't, like, your own, it's your own fault. Like you brought this upon yourself. Don't act surprised.
Yeah. So yeah, one of the things too. Well, let me share the red-tailed hawk. So let's share the red-tailed hawk story, because I feel like that was a gift from Pluto to both of
Okay.
us. And then let's talk on the discovery chart a little bit, and then kind of get more into the demotion and our opinions on that
Oh yeah.
and what we've uncovered that's very suspicious
I cannot. Yeah.
about. Yeah, me neither. So in summary, Pluto is potent and don't ignore. So just to kind of, the first 20 minutes of the show, driving that point home, just like you said. So last week on Wednesday, we did part one, where we introduced Pluto in astrological meetings and shared all the cards, like Elise said, from the tarot and all the symbolism, and pretty much, defined and introduced what Pluto means. And that was on Wednesday at 12. And then Thursday at about 1 o'clock p.m., I see something out my window that catches my eye. And lo and behold, it is a red-tailed hawk with a pigeon as prey. So I live at the beach, and seeing a red-tailed hawk in a city, let alone this close to the beach, is pretty rare. So that I've lived in this where I live right now for almost 5 years. Never, ever, ever have seen on this in this ledge right outside my kitchen window a red-tailed hawk or any kind of bird of prey like this ever, besides like crows. And the crows are around and that kind of thing. So I feel like this was a little gift, a nod from Pluto for covering what we did last week. I work with the planets and the energy of the stars and everything, just like I would a spirit guide or an angel or something like that. So this to me was quite powerful. I mean, hawks are generally considered to be really powerful messengers anyway, but just the fact that I got to see it with prey and pretty much eating something that it just killed or that I just picked up that had just died speaks volumes to everything that we talked about last week and then also that we're covering this week.
I love
so that. Pluto's not one that I usually invite in as far as, like I'll work with Mercury directly or Venus, but, Pluto can be a little scary. So it's not one that I typically say, hey, Pluto, send me a sign. But I feel like Pluto did anyway, just because, we're giving him the attention that it deserves. So I think that this was a little signal of gratitude to us, Elise, for what we're doing today and what we
I'm
did
excited.
last week.
Hold on, wait, can you keep talking about the red hair? Because I just out of arm's reach, I have Ted Andrews' Animal Speak book, and I really just want to say what it says about the red hair or the red-tailed hawk.
That's a good one. So this was pretty much right outside my window for, I'd say, a good 2 to 3 minutes in there. And it was a really, really windy day too, that I want to kind of note too. Like this was hard for this hawk to land on this very skinny ledge carrying this giant pigeon. So it gave me a show, which was really cool. And I got to see it in various positions, kind of, twirling around, putting its talons into the pigeon and then actually eating the pigeon actively. So pretty cool.
That is so cool. Thank you so much for sharing that.
It's so fierce.
It is so fierce. And hawks are really, like you said, really powerful messengers. And I love that Pluto, which although we keep talking about, Pluto being named for the god of the underworld, Pluto, because it is the soul, and it's the soul's will in astrology, whereas it was Scorpio is now ruled by Pluto in modern as its modern ruler, but before the discovery of Pluto, which is less than 100 years for mankind.
And we'll touch on that next.
Scorpio was ruled by Mars, which is the god of war, and Mars also rules, the ego and the will of the ego, so man's will is how I describe it. So if, Mars is the ego's will or man's will, then Pluto is really the soul's will. It is like the will that is behind the generator of all that is unseen, the unseen force that is like the ultimate power and the ultimate catalyst for ever evolving change, rebirth, life, death, rebirth, all of that. So here is, thank you for letting me pop off so I could go and see this hawk. Oh my gosh, I thought it had a red-tailed hawk in it. I know that has a bunch of different hawks in here. Well, let's see. We have, as the hawk, it has a harrier hawk, a Harris hawk. Okay, well, hawk in general means,
hawk in general is good.
Okay, means guiding vision. It says spirit, vision, and guardianship around you. Be patient and observe. You will see the opportunities. Signs are clear. I love that. I also kind of want to read pigeon because you saw it definitely take down a pigeon.
Oh yeah, do pigeon too if it's there.
And have a pigeon for lunch. So I really feel like that really also speaks volumes. Why doesn't it want to show me a pigeon? Okay, pigeon. Ooh, a pigeon means return home. And again, this is from Ted Andrews' Animal Speak Pocket Guide, which, if you guys are
Mm.
not aware of Ted Andrews, he actually has an animal speak like encyclopedia. And so this is like the bird watching pocket, guide, so that, you don't have to bring your entire encyclopedia with you. You can just like have one that will fit in your little breast pocket while you're out in the wild. Okay, so pigeon means return home. Seek security around and in the home. If storms arise, huddle with your family, biological or otherwise.
Mm.
Woof.
Ooh.
Okay. So it definitely is feeling to me like from the hawk to pigeon perspective, as that there is a guiding vision, a spirit vision that is taking precedence here that really needs to be, that might be eating your security seeking for lunch. um we must, and the signs are clear, and there's opportunities that you just have to be patient and observe, but you also can't turn away from the intensity of that which your, whether you call it your third eye, your intuition, all of the above, is starting to pick up on these guiding signs and visions from spirit that you really need to acknowledge. That's what we're here to help you do, or at
Mm-hmm.
least because we are here to to resurrect the temple that used to be a known temple where everyone could go to honor the actuality of spirit, the actuality of the soul, and your need to also observe and have your own education, integration, rituals around it, and observance of it, so that you're not only at the mercy of that which you can see and touch and taste, and the things that you can see, but that also means that they can also be altered by
Mm-hmm.
people. So you really need to, yeah, allow spirit to guide you so that you're not led astray by materialism, or just like the material reality of things, and pretend like that's all there is. So
Yeah. So potent message, potent
yes,
messages, all
potent
wrapped into that
messages.
little 2-minute experience. So thank you for letting me share that, and also for bringing in Ted Andrews. And I'm so happy
Yes,
that we had that book right
I
there.
love that guy. I know. Thank you.
Yeah, he's great. Do you want to segue into the Pluto discovery?
Yes. So interestingly enough, Pluto, which is known as the farthest planet in our solar system from the sun, um, is was actually only okay. Well, I'm actually going to read this part from the Astrology Encyclopedia by James R. Lewis, which says the existence of the ninth planet was suspected when astronomers detected a gravitational effect on the orbit of Neptune, the eighth planet in our solar system.
Mm-hmm.
And Percival Lowell, an American astronomer, built a private observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, called Lowell Observatory, in order to locate this hypothetical planet, which he termed Planet X. He began his search for this planet in the early 1900s without success. In December of 1929, a young amateur astronomer named Clyde Tombaugh,
Tom
Clyde
Bao, I think.
Tombaugh,
Yeah.
was hired to continue the search. His research eventually led to the first sighting of Pluto on February 18th, 1930, after conducting a very careful sky survey and examining hundreds of plate pairs. The official discovery of Pluto was announced on March 13th, on Lowell's 75th birthday. Um, Interestingly enough, the scientists of the Lowell Observatory requested suggestions from the public on the naming of this Planet X. Many names were proposed, such as Atlas, Minerva, Apollo, Zeus, Perseus, Vulcan. However, the name came as a result of a letter from Venetia Burney, an 11-year-old schoolgirl in Oxford, England, who recommended it be named after the Disney character Pluto. It is possible that this idea was accepted based on the fact that the planet is in perpetual darkness from the myth of Pluto, the Roman god of the underworld, and because the first two letters, PL, are the initials of Percival Lowell.
Mhm. And sometimes the symbol is a P you'll see in the chart rather than the glyph that we talked about last week. You'll also see Pluto represented by a P
Exactly.
or like a
So,
PL. There's an L in there somewhere too.
right. And so, and also this whole thing with like, the element, his helmet of invisibility. Um, and it does say, Pluto is also known as Hades, the brother of Zeus and Poseidon in Greek culture, a grim deity, yet not a totally evil one. I'm glad that it states that in here.
Yeah.
He rarely ventured from the underworld, which he inherited from following the defeat of the Titans. Um, he was also called the god of wealth from not only the precious metals hidden in the earth, but also the fact that the number of his subjects, the dead, could only increase. That there is
Mm.
only increase when it comes to the numbers of the dead. Over time, a gradual idea of judgment entered the myth of Hades, associating him with the idea of punishment and reward. Um,
Mm.
Most souls were said to spend life after death in the dreary meadows of Asphodel. Evil sinners were doomed to torture for an eternity in Tartarus, while heroes resided in Elysium enjoying their feasts and games. Interesting. The myth surrounding Pluto's wife, Persephone, is symbolic of the origins of the seasons. And yeah, so I think that's all I wanted to read from this. But let's go to the. Oh well. Also, so the birth, death, and rebirth are Pluto's primary associations when we're talking about Pluto in terms of astrology. This powerful planet represents the ultimate threat to the ego, which is obliteration, and the and how death obliterates the ego's facade by penetrating deeply into the true self, exposing the shadow and the pain that must be dealt with. Pluto characterizes the will or a person's inclinations or disposition in the sense of what drives them in life, not just what the ego drives one's physical being to do for survival or advancement in some way. Pluto's sign in the natal chart describes how the person expresses these drives. Its house placement indicates where there is a tendency to control and to dominate. It's also where one fears control or domination, which I think
Mm.
is very interesting when it comes to looking at Pluto as a generational planet and how these groups of people on Earth and what they inherit essentially, or what they share as being both something that they, wherever Pluto is placed in their chart, exposes their relationship or inclinations or dispositions when it comes to death, power, rebirth, and stuff like that, but also control and domination, like what ultimate power means to them. So there's a lot of talk out there for us. I'm a Scorpio Pluto, so I have Pluto in its dominion, and us having, especially for the us Scorpio. Uh, Early Scorpio generation being in exact square to the early boomer generation being the Leo of Pluto generation, and us now facing a very taxing, very trying Aquarius Pluto transit, which is squaring us, but it's actually opposing our parents. So we have catharsis cataclysm and certainly dynamic change, or the intensity of impending dynamic change all around. Oh,
Yep.
Joe Y says, least developed and nasty, Snake and Scorpio. More developed and with a keen eagle, keeping
So
something
the
in
the four animals that are represented by Scorpio.
by, I'm sorry, by Scorpio, or by
Yeah,
the
so
fixed sign.
by Scorpio, there's four. There's the
Oh,
scorpion, the snake, the eagle, and the phoenix. So it is the
oh,
one with the most forms of representation as far as the animals go in
right.
the zodiac.
So I think another interesting thing, and maybe we can get into the discovery chart based on this, is like we said, like Pluto is always in the shadows, you know, and the power of Scorpio, of Pluto and of Scorpio is always in the shadows. And Scorpio is the only sign of all the signs in the zodiac that actually exists in the shadow. So its shadow side is its main orientation, and that the
Mm-hmm.
flip side of it is the phoenix, you know, the firebird that rises from the ashes of destruction, of
Yeah.
cataclysm, to rise again as ever, you know, powerful and everything. Whereas all the other signs, they are in in the light, you know, their main iteration, their main orientation is that of their light self, you know? And so, and the opposite of it, their shadow self, is something that is hidden not just from each other, but they're hidden from themselves. And so that's another kind of aspect of Scorpio, is that Scorpio forces you to look at the shadow. And if you surrender to the actuality that shadow always exists, Scorpio is always there, whether you can see it or not, that it's giving you a glimpse of something, that there's something deeper and darker inside of you as well, regardless of what sign it is, you know. In every,
Yes.
for Leo, for every, you know, courageous lion, for every benevolent monarch out there, there is a there is a domineering tyrant, you know, the shadow side, you know, an egotistical megalomaniac, you know, that's completely self-centered and doesn't give a crap about any of the people or things that it rules over. It is an incredibly self-serving, petulant child of a leader, you know. Or even a follower, you know, that could also be like a shadow side. It could
Mm-hmm.
of Leo, um, and you know, so I love how Scorpio slash Pluto is out here telling us the real, whether you have the, you know, the palette to see it and observe it or not.
Yeah. Let's pull up the
Um,
chart, the discovery chart.
let's pull up
You,
the discovery chart. When we knew there was something lurking in the shadows, but we wanted to, but you know, it took some patience, just like Ted Andrews was talking about in the hawk thing, right? Is that it took some patience, it takes some patience to observe the message, right? But these
mm-hmm.
people, yeah, you have to be patient to observe the spirit vision unfolds, and it
Yeah, and
doesn't
just
shout
just
at you.
thinking about that, the first indication was this wobbling or gravitational thing, you know, alluding to the fact that there was something more beyond. So I think
Right.
that kind of plays into the story and the meaning as well, just in this the origin story of, you know, the discovery of the planet. So we made this. The time we did not have exact, so I just made it a Pluto rising chart, which I thought was kind of fun to work with.
I
So
love
this
that.
is the exact day, February 18th, 1930. Pluto was discovered while Pluto was in tropical Cancer, which is also interesting, being the only other sign that has a symbol that is its body is a weapon, the crab.
Hmm.
It just kind of an interesting correlation to me. Under a Scorpio moon, which is also another interesting part of the story.
Oh
So we were
yeah.
talking about this chart, Elise, and the one thing that we kind of, well, I mean, we can spend hours on this, but the one thing that we thought was incredibly interesting was the placement of the planets that are essentially conjunct the nodes of the moon.
Oh yeah.
So the Scorpio moon in the south node and Chiron in Taurus with the north node in Taurus.
Right.
So those are the things that I think you wanted to really touch on as far as elaborating a little bit more on this.
I mean, I do. I mean, there's a few other things that I thank you so much for giving this a Pluto rising chart. And for those of you who do not know what we mean by Pluto rising, Pluto, the sign Pluto, if you want to point to Pluto on the chart, is on the left side, closest. It's rising. It's the planet that is closest to the ascendant. I love this idea of Pluto having a Cancer rising, because I think that's almost like where, we think of Pluto, we think of death, we think of the underworld as being evil, but really it has for me, like Cancer rising is like, I have actually a really like nurturing, I have a really nurturing outlook on the world. I hold my children, I even coddle them. I'm here to receive all, emotionally, and it can
and
seem
I'm comfortable in the underworld, and I'm learning how to grow into the physical, and just this whole, the polarity and the seen and the unseen, like we were talking about, like in the very beginning with the story, with the myth, like having the moon and the south node with, the integrated part of the energy in the moment, the comfort zone, the underworld being the comfort zone, and then growing into, as was pointed out in the comments, growing into being the teacher, the mentor, the master. Like that's the whole evolutionary journey of the moment of the discovery as well.
Exactly.
So it lines up so beautifully with the myth.
It really does. And in terms of, and then the other thing is, again, we don't have the exact time, so we don't know exactly if Cancer is the rising, but I love the idea. We definitely know that it has the Scorpio moon, because the moon was still in Scorpio the entire time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the whole day.
On the day of the 18th of February in 1930. And so I'm just thinking that dispositing this moon in Scorpio, which is seething, obsessive, like it is so oriented towards the, formidable power of that which cannot be seen, but is like, it's just, the unseen power of things, that power dynamic between like people. And when I talk about Scorpio moons to people, I'm like, that person, if you are a Scorpio moon, your ultimate thing is power, to be the most powerful person in the room, not to announce it. Okay. You are happy. It is happier being, the man behind the curtain and not the great and powerful Oz. That's what we have Leo for. That's what we have, even a figurehead, a talking person like a Gemini or something like that for, or a diplomat, Libra for, we have, or a Virgo civil servant for it. The Plutonian moon is obsessive, because it, in karmic astrology, we call it the pallbearer of souls. It's the reason why it is so obsessed with power is because it fears being under the thumb of of another power, of something outside of itself. So it like accumulates power in the shadows, from the shadows, even from the shadow part of life, even from the shadow part of self, where it can't be taken away from anyone else. And it's going to act from that place of power, but it might be a little obsessive about keeping that power, about dominating from a place that can't be touched or even detected by other people or anything that is of this earth, essentially. I know, pallbearer of souls, it's a rough one, right? And then so what's also interesting is that the South Node is also in Scorpio. which, okay, so, that is our axis of evolution, and having your south node anchored, with, to the moon in Scorpio. I mean, it's just like, first off, the connection to the past and the subconscious patterns of needing like overall like dominant power, you know what I'm saying? And power that is like not, it will even go to the point of making, like, I don't know. It's just, first off, it's also a fixed sign. So I'm just thinking about like how hard it's like holding on to whatever
Hmm.
notions about power and power dynamics that it really has. Also to the point of like emotional manipulation, and
Yes.
revenge and stuff like that, like things that even start to hint at encroaching on its power, or exposing it, you know what I'm saying? Like showing light on like that's the person behind the curtain, this is where they're, and
Hmm.
this is where their this is where their power really comes from. Those are you are immediately putting like a target on your neck, on your back, so I don't know. There's, and just obviously, if its north node is in Taurus, it's seeking embodiment, to evolve. That's what I think is so interesting about this discovery chart, is that like it's like its discovery is its first step towards embodiment of its own power in a physical sense. Like it has a physical body now. We've identified it in the sky. We're starting to incorporate it into our understanding of the solar system, whether you're talking about the quantitative exploration of the stars, which is astronomy, like or the qualitative exploration of it, which is astrology. It's already on its way by way of its discovery, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but it might still be a little bit attached to the past. It might be a little bit, maybe it, like I'm almost feeling like there's like a struggle of it wanting to, now that it's been exposed, it might be a little bit more obsessive on these, on the back end power. Like I had more power when I wasn't observable.
Yeah.
But I have to like trust and move towards, the embodiment and the inherent value of being seen, and having the receipts. That's what I always think of when I think of a Taurus North Node, is that it's the body, and what that means. Oh my gosh, I'm really getting that whole thing about the body, like when the uh, North Node was in yeah, when the North Node was in Taurus, this past go round, what was that, like 2021 or something like that, 2022, something like that, or
21,
maybe,
22.
or 22 to 23, something like that.
Yeah, it
Oh
was
yeah,
recent.
yeah, it was recent that like all I could think of is how much power, there's tons of power that is like controlling how the world works from behind the scenes, from places that are unobservable
Yes.
and untouchable, whether you talk about a financial system, whether you talk about secret societies, or even religious structures where we don't really know what it is. We only see the body of it outside, right? Like the church is a body, right? But what actually is going on behind it, the spiritual elements, the rituals, the energetics behind it, are unseeable, unknowable, and yet they have an incredible impact that not only can you not see, we're not even like taught to like observe them or participate in them in any meaningful. That's just for the people, to the people that administer it
Hmm.
to
We're supposed to
others.
just take things at face value and not question.
Right. And so it's funny because it just gave me all this like thought of like, well, you can attack the body, but you still have like the spirit, like something anchored. But then on the flip side of that, it also made me think of how in the law, someone cannot be, you can't be accused of, or indicted, you can't be found guilty of a murder without the body. So even the
Mm.
law has this thing that like without a body there's no case, without a body. And so there is an inherent value in the body that this, because that can't even be undone by those who work in the darkness and that are like, want to control things or manipulate things or completely identify with just the spiritual, the energetic
Yeah.
power system
The body
behind
gives
things.
us the senses to know and to feel and
Right.
to,
And
work through that physical form to really uncover what we're sensing is actually there or happening.
exactly. And while I
Yeah.
was thinking of, like, all these people experiencing, especially, like, if for people that were still in lockdown and, like, all this kind of stuff, and people just being, like, having a hard time qualifying or whatever in their physical existence, there's, like, almost a message of, like, your physical existence isn't important, your physical body isn't important, like, that kind of stuff, and it's like, no, it's the most important thing. Spirit doesn't have a vessel with which to interact, to like be in and interact with the world. And even the law says like you can't even hold somebody responsible for a death or something like that. Like you can't even charge someone with a crime if the no body is found. So that
Mhm.
in itself is like underscoring the significance of the body, that like even so-called justice can't be administered or come to a consensus if the body isn't there. So I don't know, I think part of I and the fact that of course the lunar nodes moving backwards and going into to Aries, right, from the North Node in Taurus, is like that connection between the will and like the spark of life, the initiator of life, needing like the body. Like to me, there was also something going on at that time where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really feel like the powers that be. It felt very Scorpio South Node, being like, okay, listen, when we go back into 29 degrees, like Aries, let's do something. There's like something huge that was like very much about like giving up the autonomy of the physical body, and there with no relationship or connection to what the will, what the Aries will. So
Mhm.
literally your body is everything. Like it really is everything. I mean, I don't want to put it above or below the will, of Aries, or the mind and the communication ability to think and learn and communicate and locomote and of Gemini. But damn, it's hard to there's a reason why Taurus is the counter to death, which is like the force, the fear, the power that is, kind of driving all of us, or at least the fear of it, the obsession of that life is finite is kind of an obsession.
Mhm.
Like it's kind of hard to put something above that Taurian Taurus. Also earthen iteration of Venus.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to put
And
something above that in terms of value.
yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. And the moon kind of being too like soma related to the body, but also to the soul. Just the
Hmm.
fact that this is a waning moon in this chart, I think is really interesting too, like on its way to the last quarter square phase, which is
Hmm.
known as the quote unquote crisis of consciousness, or that whole part of it too. Like it's losing light. It's also disseminating. It's also kind of, disappearing,
Yeah,
losing its energy, losing its vibe.
completely.
I feel plays into this whole story that the discovery chart tells as well, and
I,
the
I
relation back to the origin story.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Also, the fact that Chiron, the wounded healer, is in conjunction to the North Node in Taurus, and
Yeah.
the wound of physical existence, and the feeling of having a hard time accepting the inherent value of the physical body because the
Hmm.
soul remembers it being devalued. It remembers possibly even its destruction. Like when I think, I'm literally thinking of like having its throat ruled by Taurus slit. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it like literally remembers having, now that if I evolve towards my North Node in Taurus of embodiment and being like seen and relishing in the inherent value of this and how I'm able to generate more value while I'm in this state of inherent value. I also remember that it is finite and it scares the shit out of me. And I'm
Yeah.
really, I'm scared scared at how vulnerable this makes me, you know? It's both a blessing
Mhm.
and a curse with that North Node in Taurus conjunct Chiron in Taurus. Um,
Yep. The whole
I
point is to master being embodied.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. Oh, I love that. And to not want to go back to what the moon emotional, anchor and security feeling of being disembodied and only accounting for like the energetic, or the spiritual in not in service to, the whole point of polarity is to balance the two, right? But man, if Pluto goes back into its, based on its discovery, if Pluto were to go back into its, to its comfort zone of the moon and the south node, which is like it's doubly right, the comfort zone because it's both the moon conjunct the south node, then whoa, it's almost like spiritual embodiment just like took itself off the table, or like the soul's will being known to man, being known
Mhm.
to earth life in total, um, being taken off the table. And I also think that it feels that way also with it's not an exact square, but this uh Venus, or this what's that called? This it's not a square. It's a well, first off, Mars is squaring the moon and south node.
And the
But I'm
nodes, yep.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking of which it um which is can be a real like raw deal for sure. But I'm just thinking about the sun being in the last degree of Aquarius, which
Yep.
um and like super last degree, and also having this like out of sign conjunction with Venus, the ruler of Taurus. It's North Node
Yep.
and it's
We had a
Chiron.
comment about that, yeah.
Also disposing or dispositing Venus exalted in Pisces, but combust conjunct the sun in the last degree of Aquarius. So something's on the way out. Interesting. Do we think it's on
Or
the
the
way?
hidden power.
Oh, I'd be interested to know. I didn't check the retrogrades of this time, but I'd be interested to know if you know if this is a if Venus went retrograde this year, or you know what I'm saying, like where
Mhm.
Venus was on its journey in this thing.
Well,
When
that would be the midpoint. So that would be almost just after a Venus cazimi on the other side of the sun, so the midpoint of the cycle, the
Right.
superior conjunction.
So it was a superior conjunct. This we're seeing the result of this
Mhm.
Kazemi is
It's just after. Yeah.
right after. Okay. I mean, for I could do a whole like
I know.
series
We're
on
already
out.
at an hour.
I know, but I'm just thinking about like the significance of out of sign conjunctions and like what they
Mhm.
really like, symbolize and stuff like that. Um, but when I'm thinking of yeah, when I think I don't know if it's on its way out. To me, it's on its way in. To me, it's on its way in, especially seeing that it had just been after the superior conjunction. To me, it's like it's making its way away from the sun to make its the value of it more known, like the
Whatever got seeded during that journey.
yeah, and it's you know that it's like that the Venus, the dispositor of the North Node, is making its own path, and out of the like sun solar kind of like inception
Yeah.
point. It's being seen as on its own terms, and it's being seen on its own terms in its exaltation in Pisces, which is all about the spirit, like all about
Spirit.
the
Yep.
yeah, it's all
The
about
hidden
spirit.
power of spirit is kind
Yeah,
of
the
what this
hitting power of spirit is like picking up speed. It's picking up
mhm,
speed. It wants
to
to
come
go.
back to the sky.
Yeah, it wants to be seen, it wants to be known. And the last thing that I want to say, because we don't know exactly what time this is, but the first thing that I thought of when I saw this chart and this is that if it actually is around 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. Mountain time, um, it also has there is a range in there where this would still exist. But I am a tropical, I use Placidus house system that the that Scorpio and and Taurus are actually intercepted in this chart.
Yeah.
That is really crazy. And to think, one of the crazy things about when the moon is intercepted in a chart is that it's like, the moon is a culmination of memories of of safety and stuff like that. Our souls experience something. We know we learn this is secure. We learn this is dangerous. It gets encoded in the DNA. We move on. We still have those memories like there. And when the moon is intercepted in a chart, it literally means that you have like goldfish memory. Like you might keep
Mm.
re-experiencing stuff that is like emotionally unsafe, but then it gets
Yes.
like deleted. It gets deleted. And so you're like, until you have something that sticks, maybe like a person or like an environment or something like that, or, you've moved on by way of, progressions or relocation or all these, these kind of like evolutionary steps. That's something that you keep experiencing. Like you never find the comforting like mother within, and you don't find it without, and you don't remember what things are safe in a person or a relationship or a situation and what aren't. And
Mm.
that's really difficult. And then also when you have the lunar nodes intercepted in a chart, it literally means that one's destiny, where the soul is coming from and where it's going, is hidden from the chart holder until
Mm.
some of these evolutionary steps have transpired. And even then, if they've gotten so ingrained in the ways of just kind of bypassing, like literally spiritually bypassing your destiny, because it's not anchored in where it's coming from, it doesn't have a clear sign of where it's going, that like when it gets got, it's like there's like an accumulation of life experiences that have that it feels like a repeat. It feels like it's going to have to be repeated.
That's also part of the story too, with the planets that are squaring the nodes in the discovery chart as well. Whenever there's
Hmm.
something squaring the nodes, it's also a repeating step or a skip step or a lesson that recurs. So there's so many layers to this that are so fascinating.
And which, if you want to tell the audience, which of the squaring planets, really exemplify that the
Well,
repeating.
yeah. So we included the goddess asteroids in this chart.
Hmm.
So what we're speaking to, several things actually: Mars, Mercury, Black Moon, Lilith, as well as those are all in Aquarius, and then across the way is Vesta, the sacred flame, in Leo. So there's actually a fixed Grand Cross in Pluto's discovery chart, which is
Whoa.
fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a completely evolutionary story, and so many things to dive more deeply into. At least we are over time.
But okay, but we should do at least that. We should do the
Yeah, well,
whatever chart.
let's do
Okay.
part 3.
You want to do part 3? We don't want to
Yeah,
do
let's
a okay. Because
yeah, let's just
well, we will save for you guys
yeah.
what the demotion chart looks like, because
Yes. That's a
there
whole
it
episode.
we've shown you how intense the origin story and the significance of Pluto itself is. I completely think that Pluto deserves a part 3. And then, but also we gotta like we're not gonna call it even a conspiracy theory. There is so much stuff beyond that
There's
it's
something
demotion
shrouded.
chart. There
Yeah.
is something shrouded, and it's so in opposition in so many ways to its discovery chart. Especially, I even love the fact that like a guy who at least had the resources to make his own observatory to find this thing that he knew was lurking in the shadows, but like eventually he even had to hand off the responsibility to essentially an amateur stargazer who was like manning the manning the wheel at the time. And then it appears to him, and then how institutional the shutdown of or the demotion of this
Yep.
magnificent planet that
Yep.
that literally embodies the soul's will beyond the
Yep.
egos and beyond human comprehension.
There were so
Woo!
many things going on culturally at the time. There's so much more to touch on just in and of itself as far as Pluto gets Plutoed. So
Yeah.
let's do part 3 next week. We'll kind of shift our schedule around a little bit. So, Mercury retrograde redo as far as our planning. So let's do, because I think part 3, I think this deserves a whole episode because
Yeah.
we have a lot to
We're
cover
going to unpack
still.
the demotion. We might be
Yeah,
naming names even if they're
maybe.
we have to figure out if some of these names are of public record. But whew, okay. I love
Yeah,
this. All right. Well,
yeah.
thank you guys so
So
much for
next
joining us.
Wednesday at 12 Eastern
Next Wednesday
Standard
at
Time.
12, we will be waxing hermetic with a We Heart Pluto Part 3, where we will be unpacking the chart of Pluto's demotion from a planet in our solar system to that of a what did they call it? Like not a pseudo planet. It's
A dwarf, something
a
dwarf.
dwarf planet,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
would
no
then put it in
thanks.
the same category as Ceres. So maybe we should touch on Ceres because Ceres is like Demeter, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll unpack all that with you next week. So thank
We
you
promise.
again. And we look forward to seeing you here for Cafe C, Wax Hermetic talk show here on Astro Magistus YouTube. And we look forward to seeing you again. Again, I'm Elise.
And I'm Ursula.
And this
You
is
want
the
to ring us
bell
out?
indicating that this is the end of this ritual.